Hello, this is Stephen J. Holliday, founder, presenter, IDM Ministries and Association, where every day is a little more like heaven than the day before. And this is a copy of Everything I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in a Truckyard. And I'm reading today a selection from that book called Dakota, and it's dated November 2016. On a cold and dreary night in the plains of Dakota, a man stumbled in cold and wet. With a round bowler hat, a tie, and a coat, he shook off the rain and looked for a place to sit. With shouts and cursing come a man from the bar, yelling insults, barks, and threats. "We don't need your kind here, Four Eyes. Stick around and see what you get." Not wanting to fight, the stranger laughed with a nod, just trying to keep the peace. He smiled real big, lifted his glass, and took a seat. "You didn't hear me, boy. I'm talking to you. You ain't wanted here, and I'm fixin' to shoot." His hand hovered over the gun on his hip. His eyes went cold, a quiver on his lip. "Now settle down there, partner. There won't be no need for all that." He took off his glasses, placed them with his coat and his hat. "What do you say we just step outside? Take off that belt. Make it a good fair fight." His friends at the bar started roaring and yelling. Their friend whipped them all. It was quite a sight. "You got a deal." He tossed the belt to a man at the bar. "Hold that for a minute. This won't take long. I'm gonna tell this runt where his kind belong." He stood a foot shorter than the other man, with his starched white shirt and his soft white hands. He put up his fists, and they started to roll up and down like a Sunday school stroll. The bully laughed and gasped at the sight of this little man weaving and rocking. He cocked his arm and went to socking. But the smaller man was no longer there. An enormous swing just rolled through the air, when all of a sudden the streets heard a snap. Everybody in town heard the bone crack. His nose touched his teeth, his eyes could not see, his face in the mud, pain shot to his knees. He wiped the mud and the tears from his eyes. When up from above a hand reached down to offer help up, getting off the ground. He swung at the gesture and rose to his feet. Like a grizzly, he swung an enormous paw. His attack far too high above the other man, he never even saw the smaller left hand. As it cracked a rib on its way to the lungs, blood expelled to the mud and horse dung. That was the left, but he never caught sight. His eyes swelled shut from a hook on the right. The next thing the bully consciously knew, the smaller man was lifting him up out of the mud. "You one tough fighter, or so I've been told. Just lucky, I guess. Let's get you something cold." "This is a valiant fighter, but every dog has his day. I guess Lady Luck just smiled my way. Someone help this man get to his seat. Smile, boys. The drinks are on me." There roared a yell as they gasped and laughed, as each man swapped stories of rustling, herding, and mining for gold, and cracking jokes they'd never heard told. They laughed out the night like men too seldom do, and the bespectacled man told a story or two about his days at Harvard and the Ivy League. He'd won some championship in a sport called boxing. From that night on, he was one of them, roping and rustling and breaking in ponies. If it was dangerous or difficult, the little man was in, and in it to win. It was like he had a grudge he wanted to settle. The little man wanted to test his mettle. The nation was at war a few years later. He headed to Washington to call in some favors. I want to lead a regiment to fight, to help in the fight. I can't stay at home. That wouldn't be right. We've got no room for you here. As a matter of fact, there ain't no men to spare. What if I found my own men? Would you send us over there? Teddy knew just what to do. He still knew a cowboy or two. He sent word to every boomtown and fort, every worn-out soldier and dusty cowpoke, grab your knife, your gun, or even your bow. If you're looking to fight, just let me know. In no time at all, he had him an army of burnt-out soldiers, gamblers and drunks, cowboys and outlaws and college punks. They raised their own money from private sources, fighting like cowboys, Europe's best forces. The little man from Harvard knew just what to do. He taught the world's warriors a thing or two about how to handle a knife, handle a gun, how to put down a bully, get a job done. But when all the world knew him by face and by name, there was another war won before all the fame. You see, he'd been born into privilege and wealth, but cursed with a secret of pitiful health. They had all the doctors money could buy, but they all agreed, your boy's gonna die. Blue lips, hollow eyes, night after night, would he live till dawn, their nightly fright? He was still there come morning, though sickly and weak, books and dreams his only escape from the pain and the pills and the nightly gasping. He'd beg the Lord his soul to take. Then one day he'd had enough. Then one day he decided to live. Live for the now is what he did, and for the now live he did. There from his bed he read every day of safaris and soldiers in foreign lands, willing health into his legs, his arms, and his hands. Without explanation from his doctors or tutors, Teddy willed himself into a powerful future. Knife, hatchet, rifle, or bow, if it was dangerous or deadly, Teddy wanted to know. It gets me to wondering what all this says. I wonder if his greatest battle was the one in his own bed. More than the rustlers, fighters, and bullies, was the war hardest won the one in his own head? It has me struck on this awful claim. What if, for you, things are kind of the same? Could it be that the stuff you've been through is only the test making a man or woman out of you? Could it be, before the crowds and the cheers, you will have to conquer first your own fears? So may it be the next time you see a child's toy bear or a man's four-eyed face carved in white stone, you think of the man who stood taller than all, who won his biggest battles in the dark all alone. Thank you.